Yeah, people tend to brand things generally. If you look at the many GLCs, like Tenaga Nasional, like Telkom Malaysia, Axiata, for example. So in the case of Tenaga Nasional and Telkom Malaysia in particular, so this started as a government department, Jabatan Telekom, and Lembaga Elektrik Negara, which were then corporatized and then subsequently floated on the stock exchange. Now they have been completely turned into competitive private sector entities. The shares are listed with public shareholding. What made them government linked is because of the continued shareholding by government entities like Khazanah, or in some cases agencies or funds that are promoted by the government, like EPF, PMB, and so on. By right, the term government-linked companies, if you go by the same definition like in Europe and US, it should only apply to Khazanah-linked companies because that's a government. But EPF is actually not government. EPF, so
it's everybody's money.
That's right. And likewise in the case of PMB, it's actually unit holders' money. Well, Malaysia Airlines have gone through a very difficult period. Their business itself was actually very challenging, and then when the oil price went up, obviously, the operating costs actually went up. Again, this is purely my observation from the side. There was a time that management was increasing the capacity, and the idea was to start to increase the load factor, get more market share before they start to improve their margins and so on. Then came the two tragedies, MH17 and MH370. So I guess when that happened for any airlines, it would be very difficult to recover. A decision then was made to undertake the strategic reset. Means that we implemented the Malaysia Airline System Administration Bill. I guess with the benefit of the new structure, new cost base and so on, it would enable Malaysia Airlines Berhad to turn around and to operate profitably. So I think that's actually the model and the hope. So I guess when it comes to Malaysia Airlines, the path is very clear. So Khazanah has already made the announcement from time to time about the progress of the recovery plan. And I think more recently, the management has been taking over that communication. Proton is very much is a private sector entity now, and of course it's a national icon. They have experienced a significant drop in their sales, and we all know that with that kind of drop in sales will not be sustainable. So although it's a private entity, it is a major employer to the industry and to the vendor community. And I think when we last spoke, when the Prime Minister made the announcement, this is an important industry that provided employment to people, and therefore, if their request is actually reasonable, we were prepared to actually consider it. I think that's why the Cabinet decided to support in the form of a soft loan, but it does come with conditions. And with that, there was a task force set up, chaired by Datuk Seri Idris Jalla, and with that, they're actually working on the restructuring plan. Now, just to be clear, it's a private entity. The responsibility rests with the management and the owners to come up with a plan. But what this task force provided would be an oversight committee and making sure that the interest of the government is protected, especially when we provided the soft loan in the first place. Among others, what was actually announced is about the need for a foreign partner, and I think a strategic partner and that's something which they are looking at. Well, it's gone down significantly. The single largest item is used to be the fuel subsidy. So in 2013, for example, 23.5 billion ringgit was spent on subsidizing petrol, diesel, and LPG. For diesel and petrol, we already moved on to the managed float system. So all things being equal, so there's no more subsidy there. What remains currently is the subsidy on LPG, which is mainly used for cooking gas and so on. So that remains. But the amount is significantly lower than the 23.5 billion we spoke about. So I think, again, I don't have the latest figures, but I think it's definitely below 2 billion ringgit. So that's actually
the electricity and
it's not.
we still have.
No, electricity is not subsidized anymore. So as you know, in the case of the electricity generation, so the price, the gas price, is actually being increased gradually, basically. So that's not a subsidy by the government per se. That's actually a price setting mechanism. Well, health is hugely subsidized in the sense that all the costs of healthcare is actually directly under the government budget, and then government collects hardly 200 million ringgit or something. So, and for revenue is actually very well below the cost of providing the service. I think the idea of me going back to the corporate sector is to try to add more value to the corporate sector. I have been privileged to have run 3 large organizations: UEM, Telkom Malaysia. This is prior to the demerger with Axiata, and the Maybank Group. I would have thought that in terms of actual CEO role, probably it's been there, done that. And I'm thinking about, again, at this moment, still thinking because I haven't really thought about it. I'm thinking about being involved in more than one company, but in what exact role that's yet to be determined. So that's something which I would like to think about from Monday onwards. We are all not born equals. Some are born into rich families, some are born into poor families. But the good thing about our government, our country, is that we do take into account, and we want to give equitable opportunity to every single Malaysian. Some people, they always think about where they want to go next. My advice to them would be focus on your job at hand. If you do your job well, you're not distracted, you will actually succeed in delivering the task that was given to you. And with that, you will be recognized not just by your boss, but even your competitors will take notice of you. People whom you deal with, they will recognize you, and your reputation will precede you. And with that, you will be able to then succeed in your career, inshallah.